if you ever get something that's like not a, well, first of all, if you ever do get a denial on something and you're like, that's bullshit, like this really should have been approved, the first thing that you should do is get a reinspection. So you just explain that to the homeowner, like, so Mrs. Jones, here's the deal. Here's what the adjuster said. I'm telling you right now, I don't agree with that. Obviously, I would not have had you file a claim if I didn't think that there were enough legitimate damages to, kind of support you filing a claim on it. So I don't agree with this adjuster. Like I told you, the first time we met, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And some adjusters just, we don't see eye to eye, or they're a little wet behind the ears still. They don't even know what it is they're looking at, and so they write incorrect assessments. If I were you, I would really recommend calling your insurance company and going ahead and requesting a reinspection with a fresh set of eyes, a different adjuster, just to get us another professional opinion on that, and we'll kind of see what happens there. Typically, when you do a reinspection, most of the time, you're going to get more than you got the first time. So with this particular claim, if they approved like 86% of the roof, that's so close to 100. Most insurance companies have a rule. Some have a rule that even if it's 51% or more, total it. And then I know that some other companies say there's an 80%. Like if it's 80% or more of the roof, just total the roof. Because it's ridiculous. How are you going to do a repair? 80%, like why would you do that, right?
Yeah, that's what we were arguing with the guy. He was being a total jerk. He was like exaggerating things that we are doing,
Yeah.
and it was terrible.
So you're going to run into those. Like most adjusters, just to give you an idea so you don't have the wrong impression, most adjusters, I always say 80-10-10 rule applies to almost everything. Like 10% of people are just yes people. Yep, they're going to pay for it. Like no questions asked, done. The world is your oyster. Just ask them. They'd give you a freaking fruit basket if you ask for them at the end. You're like, hey, thanks for the roof. Can I also have a fruit basket? Sure, they'll send you an edible arrangement. And then you have the 10% that are just, doesn't matter what you say. They're going to, nope, negative Nancy, deny, deny, deny. Like there's just 10%, doesn't matter what you do. A meteor could have hit the roof and they're like, nah, I think Mrs. Jones was golfing in her front yard and hit the roof with a golf ball. You're like, the size of a Volkswagen? I don't know. And then you've got the 80%, which are, like most people, generally reasonable. You might not necessarily agree 100%, but they're very reasonable. They'll talk to you. They're fair, right?
Right.
So most of the time you're going to have adjusters like that. But yes, you are going to run into every now and again just the guys that grind your gears. They're not reasonable. They got to stick up their butt. Like that's just how people, it's not just adjusters, it's people in general, as you've seen. You've been on this planet long enough. But so I always say, like, just don't let that influence kind of your attitude or your approach with adjusters, because most of them are pretty cool. And they might have a guard up when you first meet them. Like, you're going to find that when you show up on site for an adjuster meeting, even the nicest guys first are going to be a little stiff. Like, they're going to kind of be standoffish. Because remember, if you were in their shoes, they meet contractors all the time who are just dicks. Show up immediately, are there to argue and accuse and point. So they're already just like, ugh, who's this guy? What's this guy going to be about, right? So when you
That's
can
the guy training me.
yeah. So
The guy training me does that.
Yep.
That's funny.
Well, that's just kind of the name of the game. So if you show up and you're just super cool, here's a tip for you that is going to benefit you greatly. When I would show up for an adjuster meeting, and I know you're thinking, but you're a chick. Ugh. Yeah, but I've got really small boobs, so I'm pretty much a dude. Okay? So it doesn't matter. It's a people business, right? We're dealing with people. So one big tip that I can give you is when you do show up on an adjuster meeting, you're going to probably have your estimate there, a copy of your agreement and all that stuff. That's what I teach anyways, is to be prepared and have your, but don't even bring it up at first. Like, skip the business for as long as you can. Don't talk about the roof. Don't talk about contracting. Don't talk about hail. Just like introduce yourself and shoot the shit with that adjuster for at least 5 minutes. Like, hey, how's it going? Are you Jim? And they're like, yep. And first of all, they're like, who's this asshole? But then you're just like, hey, what's going on? I'm Matt. Nice to meet you. Like, they keeping you pretty busy out here right now? That's like my golden line every time. Like, you keeping you busy? And they're like, yeah, we've been running quite a few claims. I'm like, cool, man. Where are you from? Oh, Louisiana. like, shoot, they got you traveling, huh? And they're, so just make that conversation and they'll talk. Yeah, you staying at a hotel? You got a camper? What's your deal? Just talk to them, sports, find some common ground, just like you would with a customer. It's rapport. And then later, it's like, well, cool, man. Well, just so you know, here's what I'd like to say. I'm like, just so you know, like, I know you probably meet all sorts of contractors and characters out here. I know there's a bunch of guys that probably show up and try to tell you how to do your job and all that stuff. Just FYI, I am not one of those contractors. I'm here to let you do your job. I do just want to make sure I'm kind of on the same page, and then you're probably going to find some things that I missed. That's what I would say. Okay? So you're basically showing them that you respect their expertise. You're going to let them do their job. You're not there to be argumentative. And instead of saying, I just want to point out a few things I saw, I'm saying, you'll probably like see things that I missed out here. So I'm kind of just here to be a shadow a little bit. And then as I get to going, I continue. So that's my one little business part that I'll say. And then it's back to shooting the shit, jokes. Oh, it's so humid. Oh, the mosquitoes out here are the size of helicopters, blah, 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 whatever. Say whatever you want. And then later, as they're kind of wrapping up, like I'm seeing that they are circling stuff and I'm not bringing anything up. I'll say, hey, by the way, I know you're going to do your own thing. I totally respect that. I understand you guys have to do your own paperwork and all that stuff. I do have, though, a copy of the Xactimate estimate that I put together for this one and a copy of the Eagle View. And I don't know if you would need it for some reason, but a copy of the agreement with the homeowner. When you wrap up here and you get done, do you mind if we take just like 2 minutes to kind of compare apples to apples just to see like if you have some stuff that I missed or vice versa? And they're like, yeah, that's no problem. So that gives you an opportunity then to kind of compare and then show him things not that he got that you missed, but stuff that he missed that you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're presenting it one way, but it's an easy in. That's not like, can I show you what I have? It's like you are showing him what you have, but you're kind of introducing it in a very neutral way. That's non-threatening. It's not like authoritative or like, micromanaging or anything like that. So that gives you a great, and you're like, all right, so here's one thing that I have, and I know some things you'll probably tell me to just supplement it because I had adjusters that say I can't put that on, but if you just supplement, these are a couple of the items that sometimes I get that. Are you able to put these on now, or like what do you recommend on that? So now you're kind of approaching the estimating process together, like as a teamwork thing. You're not telling them to put things on, and you're also saying kind of you're presenting some of those items like, I know that sometimes adjusters just tell me you'll probably have to supplement that because my bosses won't let me put it on. So it gives them an out instead of asking them and them saying no and then creating tension. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
That's kind of how you're going to approach your adjuster meetings. Because I know when you kind of get started, and you've probably been on a few now, but like when I got started, I was like, how do I behave? What do I say? What don't I say? What kind of power or influence do I have on this adjuster meeting? And so I always say that there's 3 types of adjusters: the buyers, the brick walls, and the by the books. And what that means is the buyers are there. They won't even get on the roof sometimes. They're like, oh, you got an estimate? Can I have it? And they'll write it. They don't care. The independents sometimes are like that. They find one hit and they're like, yeah, it's one hit, but it's irreparable. So we'll write it. It's like a 22-year-old roof. And you're like, okay. And then you'll have the by the books. A lot of adjusters are this way. They're kind of strict. They're not unfair, but they're very textbook. Like, there have to be 9 hits per square, and I only have 7. Like, I'm sorry. Those type. And then you've got the brick walls. This is another 10%, right? And the brick walls are the guys who will not talk to you. They are just dicks, kind of. Like, they're unreasonable, and you're not going to run into too terribly many of those. You're going to run into a lot of Allstate ones like that. But that's kind of, generally speaking, like that's kind of what you're going to run into. So adjuster meeting wise, it's an interesting aspect of the business because, yes, to an extent, you have a little bit of influence, but also you're kind of there to let them do their job. Like, one mistake that I see a lot of contractors make, Matt, is they try to argue everything that they want on site. You're not going to do that. Like, you're going to see what the adjuster is up to while you're there. You're going to make notes of what he's not paying for. And then you're going to turn around and, I hate to say behind his back, but that's really what you're going to do, is you're going to go behind him to the desk adjuster who really has say in what that final estimate and scope is going to be. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So keep that in mind. I know it's just kind of a random topic here, but again, as you're getting started, you're being exposed to different pieces of the timeline, and there's like sections where you're like, what do I do? What don't I do? What's right or wrong in these parts? So the adjuster meeting, you're going to find that you'll run into sometimes the same adjuster multiple times since you're staying local, So you want to kind of build a good rapport with them, and eventually they'll be like, like I've had adjusters, and again, it's everybody's different, but they'll give you gifts. I've had adjusters so many times just be like, because they'd run into me so many times and they knew I wasn't an asshole and I was reasonable, yada, yada, yada. They'd get on a roof that's like super marginal and they're like, Becca, this is a gift, all right? I'm going to write this, but this one's, and I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm like, it's light, but they'll do that for you sometimes. You just got to play the game right. So anyway, that's adjuster meeting nuggets while you're in the field there. Have you been on many adjuster meetings, or what's your experience been so far? I mean, how many have you been
on? Handful. I haven't actually talked to, I've been on the roof with all of them.
Yeah.
The guy that's training me does most of the talking.
Trevor?
Trevor. And he's a trip. Like today, right before I came here, we were at one, and the roof was old. You couldn't tell if there was hail damage on it or not. And Trevor is like, this guy, I've had him before. He's an asshole. So I'm not talking to him. By the time it was over with, I thought that they were bickering back and forth on the roof. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
And then Trevor went in to get some paperwork signed by the customer, and I stood outside and talked to the adjuster. And he was like, yeah, I've had him before. He fights it tooth and nail. I was like, yeah. I said, yeah, he does. He's real intense. He's a former Marine, so that's he wants to get it right. He sounds like it's funny. I almost videotaped him. He sounds like an attorney. He's like, however, this pattern doesn't match that pattern, and this and that. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
But yes, I've been on some ones like that, couple like that, and then ones that are like the guy's just like, oh yeah, it's a slam dunk. Here,
write it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So pay attention to those. My personal approach to it always is don't be combative, because never in the history of adjuster meetings has been being an argumentative prick gotten. It's not like the adjuster is going to go you know what? That insult was so good, and I'm so happy to hear you have your Hague certification. I am an asshole. I'll write this one. You're right. Like, that doesn't happen. It's a waste of your energy, and it also just makes you guys look bad, Mm-hmm. So it's okay to question. Like, that doesn't mean you have to agree with the adjuster on everything. But when you do disagree, it's all about asking questions. Okay, so if I was on an adjuster meeting and the adjuster is saying, well, this is blistering. And I'm just like, no, it's just not blistering, right? And they're like, these are blisters. And I'm like, okay, well, can you help me understand? This is a key line. Anything you want to disagree with, begin with, can you help me understand? So here's the thing. I see that these are blisters over here. Like, you can see that the tar kind of bubbled up and popped. But these here, I mean, this looks like a textbook hail hit to me. I mean, you can feel the indention. There's missing granules there. It's not like a bubble from underneath. It's like an indention from the top. Can you kind of explain to me the difference? Because when you do that, they either have to prove that they're lying, they're just bluffing, basically, or making an excuse, hoping you don't know the difference. Or B, they're exposing the fact that their classification of something as damage or not is not right. And so if we can't say that these two things are exactly the same, then one is a blister and one is not, right? So that's like a little example. Or they would say, you know, Beck, I'm really just not seeing a ton up here. I'd be like, yeah, I know that if you, I'd be like, I completely understand actually, because I know if you, especially if you've been working in an area that got like 3 times as much damage as here, this area, I can agree with you. It's a little bit light. However, I still feel like there's enough on here. Can I show you what I found? And then it's your call. I want you to be comfortable with what you write up, but can I just show you kind of what I found? That's what I say. And they're like, sure, go for it. And sometimes they'll hand you the chalk then. And you're like, well, and then I won't circle it. I'll put a tiny dash mark next to it, which this is very subtle, but it allows them to decide. It's like you're not telling them what's hail. You're showing them what you saw, and then they can make their circle over it for their pictures if they agree with you. And I know that doesn't seem like a huge thing, but it really is, because it's kind of showing respect a little bit. Like you're not going to go and make their test square, but you're just going to put little dashes. So, and then I'll say, I mean, this, and I know that they're light, but I mean, here's what I would say. For me to show you these, I would say that I can't tell you with 100% certainty that it is hail, but I also can't tell you with 100% certainty that it's not. And when I'm in those situations, when I have to make a decision, I always say I lean in favor of the insured, you know? So benefit of the doubt, I mean, what do you think? So you're kind of setting it up in an interesting way, but that opens the door for the adjuster to change his mind without feeling like he's rolling over on what he once said 5 minutes ago, right? So those are just some tips for adjuster interactions. And I know this was a couple weeks from now, you'll be in the field and you'll be like, you're going to pull that tip out of nowhere. And it's going to work for you, because that's just...
Right out of the back pocket.
You'll be like, oh, bam. Yep, nailed it. And I'll tell you this, the one phrase that will get you more stuff bought, it'll blow your mind. The one phrase that's going to get you more stuff bought is what I said a couple minutes ago. I can't say that with 100% certainty that it is hail, but I also can't say with 100% certainty that it isn't. What do you think? Because if they can't say that 100% certainty it isn't, then what are we going to call it, right? There's damage there. I can't say it's not from hail, but it is damage, and the policy covers damage. So I guess we're writing it, right?